What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the No Followers Podcast. I'm T, this is Bob, and this is Bob the Younger, Robert. And we are here today, and we're going to talk about our failures. It's okay. So failure number one is you got to pick the right partners. And in this situation, it was a swing and a miss. If you're taking chances and you're bringing ideas to the table, there's going to be some swings and misses, and you're going to have some failures. So
there has to be.
And the goal is to learn from them, especially in an incubator setting. The goal is to have people that have walked the walk and walked down that path and learned their lessons and bring you into the fold, and you can avoid wasting time and wasting money, on those same kind of failures and lessons learned. So we just figured we'd be honest about some of the things that we've experienced and some of our missteps and failures and lessons learned. So, all right, who wants to go first?
I've learned the most from working with people that I didn't necessarily mend well with. Our views collided, and it was more, and that goes back to building a team. And the most important part of your business is having a team and being able to delegate certain tasks and making sure when you delegate that task, you can trust that person with that one, because that's where I failed, is when I delegated a task to the wrong person, and then they didn't execute that job well enough, which all ended up coming back on me.
But I mean, especially for this podcast and these incubation projects, right? We have to go back further because most don't have teams. Most are sitting there by themselves with an idea, being told by their family and friends that it's never going to work, or that all you have to do is go show it to somebody and it'll be an instant success, right? So
just go on Shark Tank.
Just go on Shark Tank.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
And you didn't do that.
I know.
And look, you didn't.
Maybe that's where you went wrong.
That's why I went wrong. But yeah, no, that is a failure, is not having a team around you.
I mean, I'll be honest, that's when I look back on my, I've been in this building, in this business for coming up on 10 years now. While I've done a lot of different fabrication and prototyping and worked with companies and some things that could be considered successful, bringing my main flagship product to market has been at least 5 or 6 year endeavor. And we're still not there yet. So I look back on that and look at things I've done wrong and failures along the way. And probably the biggest one for me has been exactly that, which is team building,
But for the record, I told you that.
Yeah.
Like 7 years ago.
Yeah, you did. All right. But I didn't listen. So
what was Bob again? Bob was right.
Oh man. There we go.
Man, oh man. Bob was right.
Just playing.
Bob was right. In this one particular instance, Bob was right. But it's true. It's especially as the inventor, as the idea holder, it's hard to bring people into the fold. It's hard to delegate tasks, and I've been in leadership roles in other companies before and things. And when it's not like your baby, I find it easier to you like get that kind of one step removed where you can see clearly. All right, this person is mismatched for this role. Let me move this person here and there. But at least for me, when it was my idea and my baby, so to speak, and it came down to, all right, how do I build the team? How do I bring people in? In my mind, I was like, no one's going to do it as great as I do it.
Not to cut you off, but I had that exact same thought when I was going and bringing my idea to light and going like business competitions and traveling around. I was like, I want to do all the work myself, because I'm the one who's going to do it 100% to my best ability, and I want to put out the best product. But that's learning steps along the way, is because you can't do everything. You'll burn yourself out, you'll go insane, and then that's just going to lead to more failures.
Yeah. Well, and like the phrase, the perfect is the enemy of the good. There's truth in that, not that you should just kind of throw stuff out there mediocrely. But you do reach a point where you go, am I over-engineering this? Am I overproducing this? Am I holding it too tightly instead of actually getting it to market to be able to see, am I even on the right track kind of thing?
I won't say this a lot, but there's a lot of words of wisdom in there from both of you, so I'll give you credit. But I think we have to go back a little because there's a fine line between knowing everything about your business. So there's two worlds of startup, inventors, entrepreneurs, whatever word you want to use, business owner, where one is the control freak who wants to know everything and know every piece of the company. And then there's the other one who's almost so hands off because they don't want to do any work that they delegate or hire for everything. And I think somewhere in the middle it has to be so you know what you're really good at, what you're not good at from trial and error. Because you can sit there and say, I'm not good at this or I'm really good at this, but if you've never tested it, and we always focus on metrics, like, you know, it's not always dollars, it's how fast did you get it done, right? I think there's a fine line in there, and then that's kind of the magic that we're always talking about. Where is the magic line to make this viable after it's feasible? But I do think it also depends on your personality, and we make everybody who comes to this incubator, everybody who comes through our company, do a self-assessment, and then we reassess them with our own tools. Because most people are not honest about what they're really good at and what they're really bad at. And we make everybody go through all of our training with that mindset. You don't have to recreate the wheel if you're really good at something. And this goes for Robert and this goes for the rest of the team. I know how they work. We know how all of us work. And we know where you need help and where you don't. But if you're not honest with yourself, as you're the idea person sitting in the basement looking at this cardboard cutout of what you want to invent, if you're not honest about what you really have passion for and what you don't, what's going to happen, and you both just said it, there's going to be no passion at the end. You're going to just run so many races that you're just done. And I think that's the saddest part of seeing this. I love saying no to people because I'm trying to save them from a cliff, and they don't have to listen to me. I think great entrepreneurs just do keep doing, right? But we go yes or no because it's always yes or no with caveats. Like it's that market you're going after is never going to buy this because they've already told you. We've already run the test. They said no. They're not going to pay the price you need to get. But you know, that no thing is very important to us. And I think it's really important to everybody to kind of get there.
Yeah. Well, I think you brought up something good too, which again, I hate to say. Yeah, I'll say
just good.
Yeah, I say it's
What
good. But yeah, when you said like, there's also the other end of the spectrum where all you want to do is delegate. And that's something that I've seen with small businesses come through when they're like, we're getting interns, we're getting this, we're getting that, we're bringing in this person to be the CFO. And this could be a whole episode in and of itself, but making the decision of like, especially early on as a company, you might be compensating someone with equity early on, which means you're actually making them your partner. And so now there's a whole other level of how do I vet this person for, do I want to be making decisions with them for the next 5+ years about this product? And if you bring a bunch of people in and you go, great, I'm fully staffed, I have accounting, marketing, finance, I have every department I need, and everyone just got 10%. If you ever have to go raise money, you're screwed,
Well, you can dilute it all. But once again, our model is never to touch the cap table or equity early on. And we like to build companies on royalty models and sales, and equity will come, or selling equity, and investors will come. But you also have to know what you really need, because money is just money if it's not tied to other skills and other networks.
Right. Well, and it comes back to what you were saying about knowing what you bring to the table and what you're good at. Because you might know, listen, I know this sales network, I know the distribution for this product, I know how to do it. I need help with the engineering side. That might be something worth bringing a partner in for. Versus saying, oh, I need someone to do my books. You can probably just pay out for that hourly as that gets done. You probably don't need to bring someone into the fold. Even though you may not be good at accounting, you may not need to hire someone to do accounting full time yet. So it goes back to kind of having that self-knowledge. But I would say that's, looking back on what I've done and what I haven't done, that's probably my biggest failure and my biggest shortcoming is being so product focused and not enough team focused.
And I'll bring up one thing, because we have a lot of client partners that are lawyers. People always try to make a lawyer a partner, and you have to understand the career they're in. Their job is to shoot holes in everything and to say no to everything most of the time. the greatest lawyers in the world, they're looking for the things we don't. Not always a great entrepreneurial growth or scale partner. And do you really need them? Yeah, maybe as a board of advisors, board of directors, there's different places, but to say you're a partner, you might have constant battles because at some point in every business life cycle, you have to take a leap of faith, and that involves risk. Okay, people who are risk averse all the time are going to keep holding you back. And at some point you have to take the risk to say, is this even worth my time anymore?
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing for most people, is to kill their companies.
Yeah. Well, and doing that risk profile assessment, it's something we've talked about a bunch over the years, but you might have people that toss money at you that want to be involved, and they're the wrong partner, not because they don't have the money, and maybe not even because they don't have the network, but if their risk profile isn't the same as where you're at in your life cycle stage, that could be a recipe for disaster too. And so having the right team with the right risk profile, with the right kind of goals, it's not a small task to be able to do that, but that's kind of the task at hand, especially as an early stage company.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point, because I've been there to where someone's.
Why'd you give him great point?
Thank
And all he gave me was good.
Well, he gave this. I would have said great point.
Thank you.
You did the right thing. Yeah.
Well, he went to
Trust for
Babson.
God. Yeah. Thank you very much. I did go to Babson. That is
They better pay a very big sponsorship. That was a very great point. The guy over there.
You were saying I made a great point. I think we can just leave it right there. I think I did make
He's
a
in
great
the little
point.
seat.
When I was early on in a startup company looking for money and I needed a lot of capital, I made that mistake of the people who throw the biggest dollar amount at you. Yeah, that's great to get the most amount of money, but you're totally right. Is they might not work with you at all on the company, or they might expect too much in return, or just have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And I'd also love to add to the same thing about the lawyers. I'd throw engineers in that category too. And you know that I have a
Love-hate.
Yeah, I got a love-hate relationship with engineers. But a great engineer is great at poking holes in something. And he or she has his or her toolbox of how they analyze a design and go through. That doesn't necessarily make them great creatively. That doesn't necessarily make them great at creatively solving a problem in your design. They can tell you need 5 bolts there of this size with this strength instead of the 2 you have there. But they may or may not be the one to bring into the fold where you say, this is my idea, how do I do it? So interviewing people, finding the right people, there's a whole methodology to it.
But that's also the part of perfect's the worst enemy of good, right? Because when you're starting a product, people think they have to be 100% correct. I'm just saying there's never been a product design that's 100% correct from the first moment it hit the market. Never. I don't care what it is. People will probably send us, because I always get stupid emails about there's products that everybody can buy, and they bring up water. Like, everybody buys water. Well, most of the world doesn't buy water, just saying. And how many brands are in a store? Yeah. And all those brands have different target markets. So there's no product that sells to everybody, right? But that good versus great, and it's not that you don't want to build great, but you can't start there. And without the intel of a user, and this is where every inventor gets it wrong, they build it the way they will use it. And we do this in our focus groups, we take them out of the room, leave them on the table, and see how people use them. And they never use them the way they wrote the manual, ever. I've never seen it used that way.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
That is interesting to watch, because it always happens. It's always the exact same thing. As the engineer will sit down and describe to you exactly how perfectly it works and how easy it is to assemble, and then you take them out of the room and you watch people interact with it, and it's always a different story.
Well, we did a focus group with the bikes, and just to watch people interact with the bike was hysterical.
Yeah. It's always a learning experience, and again, you got to be up for it. Bob. Failure?
That's my name.
Failure you want to bring up? Anything major?
This podcast is one of them. The
Now
incubator
that
is two.
We've thrown ourselves out there. Would you like to add anything to the mix?
I have a lot of failures. I'm looking at a few of them right now, sitting here. Some of them are impressed, and I've talked about them for years, so I feel like those are boring. I think some of the later ones for me is and you'll agree, like I love the team interaction. So when I build a team, like that's my focus. And sometimes I don't drop the hammer fast enough for my own teams. And I think that's gotten us into short-term issues, but we always figure it out. But I think that's something as I get older, that the collaboration part is really important, but at a certain point, I have to dictate certain pieces because I've done it so many times. Like categorically, I know it's right, but I want other people to get to, because I'm always looking for that magic in the middle. And we talk about that. I say this all the time, right? It's all of our ideas thrown out here, respectfully disagreeing and arguing. And we argue all the time. We're going to argue in this podcast probably every time. We'll argue when it shuts off. We argue before. We argue about clients. We argue with clients, right? It's the disagreements. It's never because I don't think everybody that has something to contribute is unintelligent. It's the perspective that's magic, to look at something from so many different angles. But certain times, that just has to be shut down. And sometimes we make that mistake jointly with clients. And I'm going to say that's the biggest failure over the last 6 months together. We need, not in the incubator, because the incubator is about learning. It's when clients come to us and we're perfecting a product, at a certain point, just let us go. Yeah. Right? Because some of those conversations are just a waste of time for us. Yeah. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's why people are hiring us. Yeah. So I don't understand why you would hire somebody and then just constantly disagree with them.
Yeah, well, that idea of like, especially now, it seems more and more pervasive where like everyone's opinion is valid and equal. And the simple fact is it's not. Yeah, like it's just not. And that's why you build a team out, is because you have people that have different experiences, different expertise, different knowledge. And sometimes one of those outweighs, another, sometimes less informed, sometimes misdirected, but well-intentioned opinion.
It's also a lot of times with inventors, they go to the industry they think they're playing in, and they only circle themselves with people from that industry. And you miss the market's perspective because the market doesn't know what the hell you're doing. Yeah. Like there's nobody that comes out with a product and everybody's like, oh, I get exactly what that does, right? We all have our own nuance, and some of it doesn't apply, and we don't pay any attention to it. But to have that outside, and that's why we love advisory boards when we're setting up companies for clients. We're like, don't start with the board of directors. Yeah. One is because their job is to replace you as the owner or the CEO, right? That's their only job. Yeah. Do a board of advisors that are not all from the same industry. You need industry contact in there, but you also need fresh perspective. And I'm pointing to him because we go back and forth all the time because he just sees the world differently.
Yeah, I have been working my way through a book slowly because there's a lot of pictures in it, and that just takes me a long time to get through the words. But it's
a comic book. That's what it is.
Calvin and Hobbes.
It's a lot of ABCs and then like C is for cow, but I'm getting it. I'm getting there. It's this book, Range by David Epstein. And a lot of it is, the whole theory of it spits in the face of the 10,000 hours practice makes perfect thing. And instead what it suggests is, if you develop a broad range of skills, that actually makes you the most dangerous weapon possible in attacking any problem. And one of the things that they talk about is exactly that, which is so many people do this with the blinders on. And he talks about these studies that they've done where they say, like, describe your project. And they say, okay, we're going to do this and this. And it's going to take us 2 years, and it's going to be $2 million. And everyone agrees it's going to be 2 years and $2 million. And then they bring outside people in and they go, well, first of all, we've done that. It's going to take you 10 years. It's going to be $20 million. And by the way, this other group has done something similar that's not the same. It's not the same industry. And it was also 10 years. And so when you take a step back and you bring in kind of these tangentially related things, you actually get a more valid data set from it. But not enough people do it because they're doing this.
But they're also trained with education. Academics are set up that way to be a specialist, right? And try to get a job as an entrepreneur when you have a general no one's hiring you because you don't get through the filters. Right.
You got to read this book because it's saying that that's wrong.
Well, HR is the greatest place that says we only hire for, right? We hire the person, not the skill set. And then you look at who they hire. Like you just hired, we just talked about this. There was a very large downsizing of a failed company, and all those people got a job with a competitor. Yeah. So you took people that couldn't make needle move, going back to one of our moving the needle, they couldn't do they couldn't move the needle in a company that was against you, and then you bring them in-house and you think they're going to move the needle for you just because they check the boxes that you think you need the job for.
Good old box checking.
Love it. Box checking. So this can't be called no box checking?
Yeah, no box checking. No box checkers. Box checkers need not apply. We're not interested. So, sorry.
Oh, no, I was gonna say back to what you were saying is that I bet being in a like the motorcycle industry and then working on bikes and then doing a podcast and then also running your business, all those, that's not having blinders on. It's taking the blinders off because you almost got 4 different brains. Like you're gonna think about a motorcycle differently than a bike, and then you're gonna think about the podcast differently than all that, but you're also gonna want to run a business.
You know how much time it took us to get him to change his mind? Do you realize how much effort it took?
But I got there. But I did it fairly quickly in the grand scheme of things.
Italian over there.
But I mean, it is true, especially when you are passionate about it. And listen, I'm a numbers guy, and I was looking at the numbers, and I was looking at the wrong numbers. Like, I'll be honest about it. You look at an industry report, you pull the NIAX code, and the bicycle and motorcycle industry is one industry. I forget what it is now, but at the time, let's say $7 billion, right? If you look at it in dollar percentage, motorcycles are 68 to 70% of that market. Right? So I'm looking at that and I'm going, that's my largest market for the application of my tech. Well, if I want to be in licensing, there's 500,000 units in the motorcycle world per year in the US and 17 million units of bicycles. So you look at it and you go, okay, well, when you're looking at what is your actual plan, and if it's licensing or sale, that's usually based on units. And the larger market is the 17 million units a year.
But there's a common mistake everyone makes to go after SAMs and TAMs, and the biggest number is my market. Yeah. And we say go to the smallest market because you're going to get the best intel. Yep. You're going to know exactly who the demographic and the profile of that user is, and then you can add others later. If you don't get that exact point as a key target market, that bigger market's never going to show up anyway. Yeah. Because you're just throwing crap against the wall.
Right. Yeah. You got to drill down.
And also, there's a lot of competitors. Everybody can look at the same report. Okay, it's $17 million or $17 billion. Okay, you're the only one that ever thought of going after that market?
Well, and that was one of my biggest gripes whenever we would talk, was always like, we'd go to these pitches and these presentations and they'd go, all right, what's your market? And well, my market is everyone that eats food. And it's like, what? Like, that's just not, there's no way. How many units have you made so far? Well, we're pre-production. And this was a real number I saw in a pitch competition. We're pre-production. We haven't finished our product. Our market is $4 billion a year. We anticipate our pro forma, we're going to hit $400 million in revenue next year. What? You know, and people just go, yeah. You know, that's a great market size. We love it. And that was one of the things, you know, that I would gripe about all the time too, that I'm sitting there pulling my hair out going, I don't get it.
I moderated numerous competitions over the years, and somebody came up with similar about food, but it was about using bugs. Because they can drop all the keywords in: green, sustainable. Not sustainable for the bugs, but that's a different story, right? But their pitch was, we can feed the world. And none of the judges asked the question, so I had to ask it. I was like, in this room, raise your hand if you would eat bugs. And there might have been 75 people in the room. No one raised their hand. So what... You're not selling to everybody. And I don't care if it was the greatest thing in the world and I didn't know bugs were in it. I don't eat every food on the planet. Yeah. So you're not selling to everybody.
Right.
So
not everyone's your customer. And not everyone should be your customer. No. You know what I mean? But I mean, you talk about our story and how we switched from motorcycles to bicycles. One of the big things that I've seen in kind of taking it to people is my frame looks like it shouldn't work. It works. I got all the data to prove it. The problem is, it's difficult to put someone on a motorcycle and prove it. I can put you on a bicycle real fast and prove it, you know? And so that was one of the things that we that we kind of jumped into was being able to look at something and go, okay, this is your hypothesis, prove it.
That's the next episode. The next podcast has to be on perception, awareness, and reality, because that's the thing that people never market to. Never. Nice job.
All right,
Thank you.
That's where we'll pick it up. Thanks, guys.